Well, hello, everybody. This is Pastor Scott Seidler, and I'd like to welcome you to our first Shepherd podcast. This is part of our continuing ministry to develop resources for our online church, for our digital community, and in providing those resources to hopefully offer some spiritual support from different vantage points, different angles of opportunity. Today, I'm joined by a member of our Shepherd family here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Her name is Kathy Bauer. She's worked in mental health for a while, and I'll give her an opportunity to introduce herself in a second. But today is an opportunity to remember that mental health is a spiritual priority, that the mental health, the emotional well-being that we have and enjoy is something that is truly a gift from God. Our emotions, our spirit, our souls are meant to be taken care of. And sometimes when we're in a situation like this crazy pandemic has brought upon us, our mental health, our emotional well-being may take a real hit. And so I'm grateful for allies and partners in ministry to join me every so often and to offer some opportunities for all of us to reflect on how it is we can take better care of ourselves and then also better care of those entrusted to us, our children, perhaps our aging parents, family members at a distance, neighbors and friends in our community. So again, I want to welcome Kathy Bauer. And Kathy, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into this mental health caregiving game?
Yeah, that is a story. I knew I always had a giving heart, and I knew I always wanted to go into education. So followed in my mom's footsteps. She chose the little ones, and I chose the teenagers. So
Love it.
there's got to be somebody there for every age group.
Love it.
But I got my bachelor's degree in education and then my master's degree in counseling. And that's where my heart is. I love helping kids. And now I'm actually doing the grief share program too. So I'm still hard at it, even though I have retired after 40 years of
Love it.
education. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah. And mental health is something, and mental health caregiving, you never really retire from that. My guess is your shingle is probably out a lot as you just talk with people and find yourself reverting into some therapeutic kinds of dialogue and prompting and the like.
Yes, absolutely. Um, I even had an opportunity just a couple of weeks ago. Um, I was in a car accident,
Wow.
and the Lord placed me there for this 16-year-old, and I ended up hugging her. And so
Yep.
I always do have my shingle out. Yeah.
Yep. It's like flying an airplane whenever the turbulence hits, and if the oxygen masks drop from the ceiling, you certainly make sure that you're okay. 911 has been called, the police are on the scene, but then you immediately turn to the person who gives evidence of an even greater need and start serving them. Talk a little bit about serving and providing mental health care for teenagers. You know, I think if there's one thing I've heard over and over again in the church, when I try to recruit adults for junior high or senior high ministry, they kind of roll their eyes at me and say, why would I want to put my life into a buzzsaw dealing with crazy, squirrely junior hires? But you felt a calling to really minister to that age group. What drove that emphasis for you?
Well, I love those kids, and they're at a turning point in their life
Yeah.
where they can go one way or another. And with my counseling background, I did a lot of research with Glasser's choice theory.
Hmm.
And I love teaching kids that what they think about and what they do is going to impact their emotional well-being and their physical well-being.
Yeah.
So I love teaching kids kind of in a roundabout way, but a lot of kids make decisions that aren't the best. We all know that. And they can get sucked into the wrong path in life.
Right.
So by staying in control of your thoughts and your actions, that kind of drives where you're going in life.
Yep.
So
And
I enjoy working with teenagers, but
love it.
I've kept that a secret from you, huh?
Yeah, well, you know what? Now that I know, and we've got such an amazing junior high ministry group here. I'm leading right now the sixth graders, and we've got a seventh grade and eighth grade small group. My wife and I actually, in the course of our ministry together, whenever we've had a choice to do ministry, we've actually done ministry with junior hires because it's just that they're not too cynical. So they're not older high schoolers that look at adults as like the enemy. But they're not super squirrely anymore like the elementary school kids. And so it's just that you can actually have meaningful conversations with them. I love the idea of that Glasser's choice theory. If we could do a little bit of a nerdy deep dive, can you talk a little bit about what is the theory behind that? I'm guessing it's a something of a cascading effect. You make one bad decision, it's probably going to lead you down the road to worse decisions, not up. So talk a little bit about that from a more theoretical academic perspective.
Absolutely. Um, he teaches us to think of our lives as driving a car. And, we're behind the wheel, so we have control over where we're going. But there's four wheels on that car, and the front two wheels represent your thoughts and your actions. So what you think and what you do are your front wheels.
Yeah.
And wherever you turn that wheel, that's where you're going to go. And the back two wheels are always going to follow. And the back two wheels are your emotional health, how you feel, and your physiology, your physical health.
Right.
So everything is related to your thoughts and your actions. So your mental health and your physical health is going to follow wherever
Yeah.
you drive that car. So
I was
that's
telling
in
you,
a nutshell, that's kind of
yeah.
what Glasser
It's so
uses.
helpful. And right now I've got my three kids are home with us during this pandemic, my two college age daughters, and then my 13-year-old son, Connor. And one of the things I'm realizing is that with my wife and I both having full-time jobs, that it's very easy to simply capitulate and allow an entire day to go by where Abby, Lauren, and Connor really are living pretty undirected lives, and so Connor can be on video games, and essentially as parents, I feel like in some ways I've abdicated that kind of oversight to keep the front two wheels of my children's life, making good choices and the like. I'm just assuming that they're kind of working their own way out. How do you help parents help their kids drive their car? I mean, because I think that's really, really tough. We give our kids over to camps and coaches and schools, teachers, and we essentially, delegate to those venues the responsibility of filling our kids' lives up with stuff to do. Now it's kind of like Little House on the Prairie. I feel like I'm Ma and Pa Ingle, and my kids are looking to me like, okay, what are our chores? And when I tell them the chores, they're not too happy about it. So how do you help parents help their kids drive the car? That's the basic question.
Right. Well, and first of all, I tell parents that, like you indicated previously, if you're not taking your own inventory and taking care of yourself first, then your kids are going to see that and they're going to react to that. But that's the key, I think, with talking about mental health, is you have to stop and take inventory. See where you are with your thoughts, your feelings. Get in touch with how are you feeling, And same with the kids, but I'm just going to go through basic things that everybody should think about. And then when you've thought about those yourself as a parent, then you look at your kids and you say, how is he feeling today?
Yeah.
And is he getting enough sleep? And there's a fine line. Some kids sleep too much and others maybe don't get enough sleep.
Right.
Are they eating healthy, or are they just going for the junk food and snacking all day?
Yeah.
That has a lot to do with your health.
So true.
And
Yeah.
then exercise. What are you doing to get out and being physically active? That plays a big part in mental health too. So, just taking an inventory. Are you watching too much TV? Are you
Mm-hmm.
playing too many video games? Are you focused on unhealthy things? What you might be watching on TV or video games.
Right.
So, and of course, you always need to reach out to others. It's been hard on kids not being with their buddies, not being at school, not being with their teachers. That's been really hard on kids. So
Yeah.
we need to kind of take that inventory and stop and think, what is my mental health like right now? Am I staying healthy so that my kids can stay healthy too?
Yep.
But
And I think it's a difficulty, right? Because as adults, a lot of times we are not very disclosive about how we're doing.
mhm,
Our favorite answer is, "Hey, how you doing?" "I'm great. How are you?"
mhm,
And the fact of the matter is, we could have just had a knockdown drag out with our spouse, something terrible maybe going on in the health and well-being of our aging parent, and we're struggling with the grief and the pre-grief of our parents' process of dying. I mean, there's so many things that hit us, and our response is, "Oh, I'm great. How are you?" And so having, friends that are willing to listen to you when you say, "I'm really not doing well," even if it's just one person, is such a critical thing.
right.
And so tell me a little bit about the connection with the physical well-being and the mental health. One of my favorite phrases the word is hangry, referring to adolescence. Whenever my 13-year-old gets chippy with me,
Mhm.
my first question or my first response is not to flip out and yell at him and say, "Hey, watch how you're talking to me." My first response these days, I have learned, is, "When's the last time you had protein?" you know, uh, and so talk a little bit more about that physical impact to personal decision makings and driving the car for adolescents. It's such a critical piece, I think.
Right, absolutely. And one of the things you just touched on, it is so important to connect face to face, eyeball to eyeball with your kids. And one of the techniques I used to use when I was in the school as a counselor, and the last 9 years, I was what they called a behavior specialist. So one of my jobs was to find out, where the kids were at emotionally before they even started their day. So one technique you can use is something that's so simple. It's 1 to 5. Give me a 1 to 5. A 1 is, you're in first year and you're just coasting and you're doing great. Or if you're in fifth gear, if somebody has really set you off, or for some reason you're not emotionally stable, that might be a 5. But just doing a quick check-in with, if they know that system, that's a good thing to check in.
Right.
I don't know if Connor would be up for that,
Yeah.
but you're so right.
Yeah.
Taking inventory of what he's eating and how much sleep he's getting and what he's watching on videos, that plays 100%. It plays an effect on your emotional and physical health.
Right.
It,
Right. Right. Yeah, I also just think about, as you talk about the 1 to 5 principle, as parents, I have to be the mature adult that doesn't take the bait when, after living in close quarters, kids, everybody knows how to press everyone else's button. When you live with people long enough, you know what to do to get under their skin. Having both of my daughters back together for 6 weeks, wow. I mean, my middle daughter had not lost a step with getting under the skin of her older sister. Stunning, really. A very great capacity. But you have to, as an adult, you have to realize that you can, by in your own exaggerated response to a child's mental health confusion or frustration or anxiety, you can actually push them further down a road, get them further off the road, so to speak, to go back to the steering wheel conversation, instead of helping them back. And I think that kind of restraint as a parent is so critical, to know, okay, he's hangry, she's moody because she's been playing Call of Duty all day, you know, killing people. Okay, that's going to yield an impact to your mental health. You know, how do you help parents learn the wisdom of restrained response? Talk about restrained response with parents.
Yes, and it's pressing that pause button, taking a deep breath, kind of reanalyzing and thinking, what's important here, you know. Silly things like, well, any little silly thing can set somebody off, but taking pause, and I think this whole pandemic thing of the country shutting down has given us an opportunity to pause and really think about what's important. I think it's important for parents to pray with their kids every day,
Yeah.
to encourage them to grow and to start their day with a devotion of some kind.
Yep.
And that has made a huge impact on my life. And I really am grateful for this opportunity to stop and take inventory of what is important in my life.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
and to be grateful for
Yep.
little blessings.
You know, I think as a pastor, and I look at not only my family, but so many families, you know, it can be very difficult to introduce new rituals and rhythms like prayer or devotion, or other kinds of more what I'll call the spiritually typical activities like a Bible study. But there are other ways to bring in that spiritual side of life for the sake of our personal mental health. It could be a note card, a 3x5 note card taped to the refrigerator door that everybody has to read every day, and someone has to come up with a new verse that's going to encourage people. It could be as easy, you know, as parents, at least I find that I can tend to always pointing out what's wrong instead of finding out and identifying and affirming what I see as right. And so, again, that's another place where, as I point out to my kids, I'm thankful God gave you this kind of personality. I'm thankful that God prompted you to give mom a hug or give me a high five or say thank you or do something that was helpful to the house where you didn't even have to be asked. Those kinds of affirmations connected to their God-given personality is itself a spiritually significant thing to do, because it ties what God has done for us with the person and the goodness, the value of that person that's right before us. You know, at the core of our Christian faith is the principle of forgiveness, mercy. Talk a little bit about how it is that in your life, when a child got off the road, their steering wheel was not pointed in the right direction, how did you help not only them forgive themselves, but also work forgiveness between their mom and dad or a teacher or a classmate that they may have offended?
Right. And kids make mistakes every day. We all
We
make
all do.
mistakes every day.
That's
all
right.
of us.
That's right.
And it's important that they experience those things and be able to grow and learn and forgive themselves, ask for forgiveness for somebody else. I remember several times encouraging kids, if they made a mistake, to think about what they did, what effect it had. And, I'm not real big about forcing kids to apologize, but I think that is important, that we need to learn, what, I messed up today and I'm going to try harder tomorrow to do better.
Right.
That's all we can ask of our kids.
Yeah, for sure.
So the positive affirmations, like you said, instead of pointing out what they've done wrong, let's point them to what they can do right and build them up and just encourage them. Everybody makes mistakes. It's not the end of the world. We're going to get through this.
Yep. Yeah, and I think, I agree with you. You certainly never want to coerce forgiveness. Well, you really can't. Either you're going to either you're going to have forgiveness in your heart, or you're going to harbor contempt for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that and I'm asking for your response and reaction to this statement, because I'm interested in how you think about this. I'm big on learning speech patterns like a wheel on a steering wheel on a car. Speech patterns will pull us forward in life. And so even when I found that my kids were not really in a forgiving or asking for forgiveness kind of mood, I've really wanted them to at least utter the words, "I'm sorry," so that they can actually feel those words in their mouth. Now, make no mistake about it, they're not sorry and they're not apologizing. And every expression on their face says that. But part of the approach also is, okay, now they just faked that they're sorry. I want you to show some bend in kindness. I think it's more applicable with with more concrete learners. You can teach a 5 or an 8 or a 10-year-old this a little bit better. Once you get into high school, now you're essentially asking kids to lie. You don't want to obviously do that. But there is that balancing point, right? Where you're trying to build a heart of forgiveness and mercy seeking in your child. That's just a real trick, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is. And, I'm big on, we can mess up, but what can you do to still be a blessing to someone else? You
Right.
know, um, and not necessarily connect those two, but I think that character is built
Yeah.
by serving others and being a blessing to someone else. And
Right.
even though you can mess up, and there's always something positive that you can bring from every negative
Right.
encounter.
Yep.
So I was always big on affirmations, and I would let kids pick their own positive affirmation for the day. I had a list of several. So
Love it.
what's your thought going to be for today?
Love it.
And they were always positive. And later in the day, I would see the student in the hallway, and I'd ask him what was the verse of the day, and he would belt it out. So, but trying to stay positive with kids and giving them opportunities. Find some way. It might not be an apology, but find some way that you can
Right.
do good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you messed up here, but what else can I do right now to be a blessing to someone?
Yeah. I'm mindful that I really don't think I've met a sociopathic child. And the reason why I say that is because every kid that has ever messed up, I have at least had the sense that there was sorrow and contrition in their heart. And while their pride or any number of other factors may have prevented them from and are preventing them from saying, "I'm sorry," I know that that's at least working in their heart. And so as an adult or as a father, my goal was always to find my way to that contrition and sorrow and say, I know you feel bad about that. I just want you to know I love you. I forgive you. You're still my son. You're still my daughter. You're still my congregation member. I'll still be your pastor. And let's figure out how to make this right. And maybe then giving it some time to percolate, like coffee in the old kind of coffee pots, and come back, a few hours later the next day to say, hey, let's take another run at making sure that everything is right between you and me, you and someone else. Again, patience, wisdom gives ourselves time, right? Well, Kathy, it's been great conversation today. I am so thankful for you. I am mindful. I don't know that if I've ever met a school counselor or a family and child counselor who does not have an infectious smile. I know that's one of the things I miss about being your pastor, is that coming into church Sunday in and Sunday out, both from you and your mom, to see your infectious smiles. It brings joy and gives me a quality of mental health that's better than when I started this morning. So thanks for that. Anything else you want to share or that's been on your mind regarding this pandemic and the shelter-in-place kind of situation so many of us find ourselves in before we wrap up today?
Well, I just, again, think it's time to take inventory. What's important in your life? Stay connected with God above all things. Nurture your relationship with God. But that's what's gotten me through. I love Shepherd. I love our Bible study. I love the Grief Share program. For just stay connected with people, and soon this will all evolve into a new normal. Awesome. Hopefully, but above all, be grateful. Count your blessings. That's what I take.
That's awesome. Hey, do a little promo for your Grief Share ministry. You're here at Shepherd, and this is an especially awful time to lose loved ones, not be able to go through the regular choreography of funerals and visitations and people and family coming and supporting you in your loss. Tell us a little bit about Grief Share and what you're doing online for that ministry here at Shepherd.
Sure. Grief is a Bible-based support group. It is a series of videos that you watch. Now we're watching them online, of course, but it's for anybody. And I have such a variety of people right now. And a lot of people never went through the grief process. And some of the people in my group presently lost their spouse 10 years ago, and they never fully recovered. They never allowed themselves to grieve properly.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
You can join this group anytime. It doesn't have to be something that's just within the last year, but it is a growing process, and many members choose to go through the Grief Share program more than once, and it is a benefit. It's just really a great way to get and give support, and to hear God's encouragement every single day going through that workbook. So it really has blessed people. And if anybody is hurting, or if you haven't moved on, if you're stuck in grief right now, it would be a great opportunity for you to learn and grow and feel better about your loss.
Love it. Well, and you know what? And if you are interested, if you're watching this video, listening to this podcast, and you'd be interested in being part of our Shepherd Grief Share family, there's an email address at the bottom of the screen that you can dial up, and we'd love to get you more information about that going forward. There's other opportunities here at Shepherd to get connected as well. We meet every Wednesday night as a family by way of Zoom and Facebook Live on a number of different platforms. And you can connect with our Shepherd Facebook page. And Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, I'm leading a study through the book of Acts. And we're going to be in Acts chapter 4 this coming Wednesday, May 20th. And so would love to have you part of that. But you can also connect up and check in on all of those Facebook Live videos on our shepherdaz.church webpage. And again, don't forget to join us online every weekend, every Sunday. We are online, and we have a 40-minute church worship experience, a couple songs, a great message, some prayer, some encouragement along the way. And it's a great way to stay connected with our Shepherd ministry here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm Pastor Scott Seidler. Thanks so much for joining us. Kathy Bauer, thank you again for all of your generosity and time and experience. You are a dear soul, and I know I speak for a lot of the families that have been listening. Thank you so much for your wisdom and insight as we figure out how to navigate these difficult days of pandemic, and to do so with the prayer that we come out on the other side not weaker, but stronger for the experience, knowing that God, by his Holy Spirit, is giving us wisdom, insight, spiritual depth, direction from his word to actually manage these days better, not worse. Thanks so much again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon on our next Shepherd podcast.